to try and speak about the issues of young people in the BBI report. At this juncture, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce my panelists to you. I'll begin with WIlkister Aduma, who is a youth development consultant. We also have Wanjiru Nguhi, who is the founder of Mwafrika Mwanzangu, a lawyer by profession and a writer and an Afro political feminist. We also have David Mutai, who is the founder of Center for Devolved Governance Kenya, and is the Director General of Goal 17, and he's also a lawyer. Last but not least, we have Robi Chacha, who is a human rights lawyer and practitioner. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for making time to talk to us this afternoon, this evening, about the youth perspective on the BBI report. I'll begin with you, Robi. We all as a country watched when the president and his handshake partner or friend, the Honorable Raila Odinga, launched the report at the Bomas of Kenya. And the report has been the talk of town, the talk of everyone across the country, not only this week, even when it was received in Kisii day after the Mashujaa celebration. My question to you would be, has the BBI report addressed some of the fundamental issues or problems that are facing young people in this country? Robi.
Thanks a lot, Grayson. And I think the question is a bit, I can go about it in two ways. From my own perspective, on one hand, the BBI does a very good job of identifying what these problems, challenges, issues are, and sets those out really nicely. But when it comes to addressing some of them or most of them within, in the context of the BBI, I may not say that it addresses them fully. It might, touch on some of them, but doesn't, conclusively address some of those issues, especially within, what is now known as a constitutional moment or the constitutional measures within the BBI report. But with regard to the policy measures and administrative measures, I think there's some of them that really touch on youth issues and are very strong in that regard.
Thank you, Robi. I want to bring in WIlkister. WIlkister, and I'll pose to you the same question. Having looked at the BBI report and having been an issue that the whole country is talking about after it was launched this week on Monday, do you think that it addresses some of the fundamental issues or problems that young people are facing, including but not limited to youth unemployment, things to do with the issues of job inclusivity and all that? WIlkister?
Thank you, Gray, for the question. I think the document does touch on matters that affect the entire citizenry. And one thing that has made us lose out as young people is always looking for the word youth, in terms of national discourse in issues that affect us as young people. I see the document addressing a bigger problem for the nation, which at that point of the handshake was where we were at a politically disengaged and disillusioned, kind of phase. And what the handshake did at that point was restore some sort of normalcy, calm, and peace to enable us, continue with our day-to-day lives. So as young people, yes, there are provisions in the document that really are focused towards young people, but I think let us not lose picture of the bigger idea, which is to have a cohesive country, which does affect us as young people. And of course, we are more than 70% in the population. So yes, there are.
Okay, talking about 70%, Wanjiru, I want to come to you. And there are people who still feel that even the young people who spoke on our behalf at the launch of the report were not speaking on our behalf or are not talking about the issues that are affecting young people. In your opinion, what do you feel should have been done differently to ensure that the issues of young people are clear?
Okay, thank you very much, Gray, for that question. I don't know if you can hear me because I cannot hear you very well. But then the BBI does focus on a few things for the young people. But for me, I'm very concerned with the timing of the BBI, considering that we're going through a pandemic and considering that a lot of people have lost their jobs, considering that we're seeing the campaign and the campaign is taking place in public without, taking any COVID measures. So I feel like it might have addressed the issues of the young people, but the timing is completely wrong. The timing is insensitive. I don't think that launching a BBI report in the middle of a pandemic says that you care about the lives of the people that you're intending to better. So for me, the timing is completely off. It might cater to the young people, but the timing is risky. It does not take concern of their lives. And for me, that is a huge problem.
Okay, David, I want to come to you lastly, still on the same question about this report addressing issues that are affecting young people. Do you feel this has been sufficiently done? David. David, please unmute yourself. David, thank you.
Thank you, sorry. Thank you, Gray. I think the issue is, the main point there is some. So if you say some fundamental problems, I would say maybe yes. I'm just trying to be generous to the BBI report because I'm going to tear it down later. So yes, some. For example, the issue of getting payment on time. If you're a young person who's applying to a county government or to the national government, apparently there's going to be a law that will make it possible for you to get your payment on time. Another thing also, if you're a young person who's been in the university and you're supposed to pay back, the money that they paid you to study, you're given a grace period. So that is what they address. But the question is, can that not be done without a referendum? It can be done without a referendum. So it addressed a very small problem, but the major problem, the fundamental problems faced by the youth in Kenya has not been addressed. And I think, honestly, the reason why they included the youth in this issue is just so that the youth can be the bridesmaid to escort the key issue in the referendum, which is the amendment of the constitution, okay? So the youth are just escorting the prime minister. Who else? We've got the youth, all the issues you've seen, all the bills you've seen being put there, the public finance law, the micro small enterprise, the National Economic Social Council, all the devolution 35%, all that is to escort one person, the prime minister. So I leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you. And you really touched my second issue that I wanted us to address. I want to bring in Robi. Robi, do you feel that all the things that are proposed, or all the proposals, sorry, which are in the BBI report should go to a constitutional amendment? Is that the only way that we can achieve some of the key issues that are being raised from the report? Robi?
Thanks a lot, Grayson. Actually, so the BBI report is the recommendations that the BBI task force sort of brings in have been split into four. There are policy measures in there, there are constitutional measures in there, there are administrative measures and legislative measures. Of these four measures, only the constitutional measures need like constitutional amendment because those are the ones that touch on the constitution itself. All the others can be done from a policy perspective, either through acts of parliament, policy papers or policy recommendations, or just the country agreeing that this would be the next course of action. And most of it could be through executive orders, which the president has done before and can be able to do on most of them. I think this goes back to David's point around most of what the BBI is doing is just to handmade the constitutional measures, which a lot of them are basically political and do not actually impact on my life or the life of someone who's in their second year of university right now. So that's my take on it. So we shouldn't focus on the constitutional aspect of it, but rather what the BBI presents for us as Kenyans, and then try to flesh those out in a manner that would be beneficial for all of us.
Wanjiru, I want to bring you in as much as you're talking about a constitutional amendment that, for lack of a better word, is the direction that this conversation could be going by what the politicians and the leadership of this country have been talking about. What should young people pay attention to when it comes to, even when it will get to the point of the referendum question, or if there are going to be bills being passed by the National Assembly or the Senate or Parliament in general? What should young people pay attention to? Wanjiru.
Okay, thank you very much for that question. When I was going through the questions, I noticed that they talked about tax breaks and they talked about a youth commission. Now, the tax breaks got my attention because before you tell young people that you're going to give them a tax break, I would like for young people to focus on what their taxes have been doing before we get the tax break. Because we know that we're a generation of people who have not seen public services working. We have not seen accessible and affordable healthcare. We have not seen accessible and affordable education. So before you dangle this thing called tax breaks in the face of young people, I want young people to focus on what is their money doing. Can we afford the social services? Can we afford dignity? Are we even being heard outside of this small shiny things that they're dangling in our faces? I think we need to focus on how the social services work for us and demand that social services work, whether or not there's a BBI.
David, I want to bring you in, and we're talking about the question of the constitutional amendment. In your opinion, do you feel that is the only way to go?
My opinion is that it's not the best way to go around it. Because if you look at everything that has been provided through the BBI, nearly everything else can be done without the referendum. There's something I want to say first, which came out during the bombast launch of the BBI. It appeared during the launch that nobody actually knew what the BBI was all about. When one man stood up to actually highlight the key points, everybody else was shocked. The leaders of the opposition, the many of them, they were shocked at what is being provided. Yeah. So I would say that even the things that we think the BBI is addressing, is not actually addressing it. The winner takes it all is not addressing it. It's making it worse. So I'm so glad that we had that launch and that there was a booing. So when you boo in a crowd, the rest of the public would think, okay, so what's the problem here? And now we are having a conversation. This is very healthy for the country. So the BBI is not addressing anything at all. Somebody else was commenting in the morning, I was watching on TV, that if at all the government wants to give counties 35% through the constitution, if they are able to, then why don't they do it now? Another thing, the country is in debt. We are not doing very well financially. So nobody really believes that we can afford to give counties 35%. 35% is a lot because the national government spends over 50% on wage bill. So, okay, 50% of pay salaries, then 35% to the counties. You want to tell me they're going to remain with, is it 20 what, 25? No, they can't. So it's all a lie. I'm so happy we're having this conversation. I thank Siasa Place for coming up with this idea.
Thank you, David. And for those of you who are watching us on Facebook, please keep on sending in your comments and your questions to the panelists, and we'll be sampling some of them as we continue with this discussion. I want to bring in Robi. Robi, Parliament will be playing a very central and key role in implementation of the BBI report through legislation, and already there have been talks, and even there is a retreat, if I'm not wrong, for one of the houses of parliament over the weekend to go and discuss the BBI report. What is your take around this issue of parliament now being the only place that is going to actualize the BBI report? Robi.
Thanks, Grayson. So at present, there are two ways of seeing through a constitutional amendment or a referendum, so to speak. So there's Article 256, which is likely to happen, which is through the parliamentary route, or Article 257, which is through the popular initiative, which is what Punguza Mzigo had intended to do, but at some point failed. So I think what Parliament is intending to do is to convert this bill, the BBI report, into a bill conclusively, with all the other omnibus bills within the legislative measures, and try to make it a bill that would be reasonable, right? And once that happens, the bill will be tabled to Parliament for the first reading. So either house for the first reading. There'll be a 90-day period for public participation, and then before the second and third reading. And then if the bill gets over 2/3 support in each house during the second and third reading, then it goes to the president. So once the president assents that bill into law, it goes to the IEBC, and then the IEBC, together with Parliament will come up with referendum questions. And then once that happens, the IBC will put those on a sort of yes or no sort of context and hold a referendum within 90 days after publishing those questions. And then the referendum now, if voted yes, it wins by a vote of 50% plus one, so more or less what the presidential election would prefer. And then the other option is through popular initiative under Article 257, which will basically go, collect signatures and then garner approval from over at least 24 counties, and then go to Parliament for the first reading and go through that process. So the one that I see is easy for the government to do right now is through the parliamentary amendment process. But even for that, again, one of the critiques I have with this is it only captures a very small percentage of the BBI report. The others can happen, without a constitutional amendment or a referendum, so to speak. So, yeah, but it still has a long way to go.
In your opinion, Robi, before I let you go, how long do you think this is gonna take before this issue comes to a close? Because we're heading into elections in less than 2 years, and the BBI is here right now. Parliament has a lot of things to do, but this one still is now going to come as the main agenda, the main issue that they're going to discuss. How long are you estimating that this might take? Either way, either the parliamentary way or the popular initiative way?
It's hard to say, Grayson. And the reason is, lawmaking is a very political process. What happened in Bomas a few days ago is a representation of what could happen. So as it stands now, the BBI report, the way I feel, is a recommendation. It's a conversation starter, so Kenyans should start interrogating with it, do away with what they feel is not right or what we feel is not right, and accept what is right. And that will come up within the referendum question. So ideally, if we go by the law of like lawmaking or getting into a referendum, I don't think this, will be ready before the next election. I don't see it happening. And if it does, then, the executive and the handshake shall have forced its hand thoroughly and reduced, the amount of time for public participation and whatnot, which is possible. And they might amend some laws just to make this happen. So that's also something to think about.
Okay, thank you very much. WIlkister, I want to bring you in. There are people who still feel that even the BBI process, the way it's been done up to this particular moment, it's not been inclusive and people have not been able to give their opinion, their comments, their views about what they feel on the report. And this, it's very key to ensure that everyone is part of the process. Do you feel that the voice of the common mwananchi, as they call us or them, was included in the BBI process?
Well, great. I think there was and there is inclusion in the BBI because we can't throw away all the recommendations that have been made through the process. The 93 stakeholders that were involved, the 124 written submissions, the ones that were mailed, over 200 by email. So we can't say these were monkeys or ghosts. These were Kenyans that participated in the process. And as I said earlier, I was not a very amused person in the beginning of the process because I felt that the voice of Mwananchi was still not, captured in the 9-point agenda. And for me at that point, I really questioned whether the 9-point agenda were the priorities of the country as at that time. And I think the opening up of the process to submissions from everyone did, achieve inclusion in that regard. The other thing that maybe I'd like us to note is that this process, even the submissions and everything, it's a highly elitist process because not all Kenyans can participate, in the same kind of discussion on constitutional amendments. So the semi-literate and the illiterate probably would have been left out, but we also appreciate that these people belong to certain groupings that may have presented whatever grievances they had in the process. So yes, for me, it was inclusive. It didn't seem that way in the beginning, but it is because we have seen young people involved, women involved, people with disabilities, the doctors, and trade unionists, and literally, I think almost all categories or groupings of persons in Kenya are captured in the aspirations of this document.
Thank you, WIlkister. David, I want to come to you, and to you, I would ask, which way do you feel we should go as a country to achieve what BBI aims to achieve? Should we let the parliamentarians do the work for us, or should we go through the popular initiative? Please unmute yourself, David.
Sorry about that. Thank you. Thanks for the question. I think to start with, we have a parliament which may be an illegal parliament. So that is something very worrying. You know, whatever we do, we are dealing with a parliament which we don't know whether it's a legal one or illegal. So we are basically wasting public funds going that way. It's a very tricky situation at the moment. On the issues, you know, whether BBI is actually right as it is at the moment, and the issues also which have been provided, are they, there was a question there which I wish it was my question, the way that the public was consulted, yeah? Everybody was consulted, but then most people were consulted. People talk about, if you go to Busia, the Kakamega region, they talked about their sugarcane problems. You go to Eldoret, they talked about their maize problems, you know. So everybody had something to say. But if you look at what was provided by the BBI, it never captured all that. Today in the morning we had, was it yesterday, we had the disabled people coming to say that, look here, our issues were never included in the BBI. So this was an entire PR exercise, yeah? It was a PR exercise. I want to tell you something. I was part of the team that drafted the Pesa Mashinani referendum campaign. And the way we did it, we had our key issues. We wanted, was it 45% to counties? And we were really sincere about that. We wanted to enhance devolution in the country. But then again, we wanted votes. We wanted Kenyans to accept this document. We wanted the MCAs to accept the document. We wanted the youth to accept the document. We wanted the women to accept the document. So what we did was, we included issues touching on these groups. So the youth had something in there, piece of cake. Like one leader has been saying, let's expand the cake, you know. So we had the youth issues in there. We had issues touching on the MCAs. We even, the World Development Fund was part of it. But that wasn't the main issue. We wanted the money to the counties, but then we wanted everybody to support us, and we had to give them a piece of the cake. That is what is happening with this BBI. The issues on the youth, on everybody else, it's all a lie. What they want is that sharing of positions, which again, as I said before, you know, it is not going to provide what was expected. If we are going to have, what we need to think about is, we can never reinvent the wheel. Let's look at the democracies around the world. How is a democracy? We've got the government, and then we've got the opposition. What they should have been asking for is an enhanced opposition office. For example, the leader of opposition can be even given the same salary as the president, and he has his own cabinet with the same salary as the government cabinet, so that we have this thing of everybody gets something. What we have now is a super powerful president. Even the cabinet secretaries will not be vetted by parliament. He just appoints whoever he wants, which, if you ask me, if I was William Ruto, I would just say, let's do this thing. Because he seems to be the leader now, you know, he can win the elections. He can go in and become the most powerful president. But no, he said, no, let's not do this. Let's have a fair system whereby whoever wins, if it's a Gwambo winning, if it's anybody else winning, if it is Kalonzo, let's have a system whereby we can have a constitution which will outlive the country, which will outlive all of us as leaders. What we have now is a moment whereby we have created a document only for the people in place at the moment, people alive at the moment, which is very wrong. And on the issue of the BBI as well, I think we need to stop talking about BBI and let's talk about one thing only. The amendment, the Constitutional Amendment Bill 2020, that is what it's all about. Forget about everything else you see in there. Those are flower girls. Talk about the issue. The document is not so big. It's about 20 pages only. Let's all read this. It is what provides the office of the Prime Minister. That provides the hierarchy. That provides the main elephant in the room. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, David. Wanjiru, I want to bring you in. And my question to you would be, do you feel the process that has given us this document that was launched this week on Monday, has it been inclusive in your opinion? And do you feel that all the voices were taken in?
before I talk about, thank you for that question. Before I talk about the public participation, because I actually took part in the public participation, I want to reiterate what David has said about whether we don't know whether the parliament is illegal or not. The parliament is unconstitutional. The parliament was meant to be dissolved, but then we're here talking about the BBI, and I feel like we have forgotten that we are, we are dealing with an unconstitutional parliament. Number two, the parliament itself has not even completed the implementation of the 2010 constitution. So now for us to turn around and say that let us now do the BBI and let us give you a time frame, it's a bit, I think we're expecting too much from people who've already showed us who they are. Then to answer your question on the public participation, I attended the BBI meeting sometime, I think it was last year, when they were, before they launched the second one. And it was an invite-only event, number one. And number two, the mode of the participation was you lift up your hand, you're picked, and then you say your problem and how you want the problem solved. Now, if you're going to call people to a meeting and you want them to participate, you can't give them 5 minutes to talk about their problem and also talk about their solution. But I will agree that public participation was done. Everybody felt like they were heard in that particular meeting. But then now, moving forward, we shall see how the document will be implemented. I don't think all those views will be, will be taken into account. I don't trust them. I don't trust this report. I don't trust that this report is for us. And so, yeah, so to answer your question, yes, public participation was done, but will it be reflected in our lives moving forward in a BBI nation? I don't think so.
Thank you. Robi, I want to ask the same question before we move to the next issue about the proposals that are facing are aimed to benefit young people. My question to you would be, if BBI then listened to all the voices, how comes on Monday we had some dissenting voices at an event that was supposed to launch the BBI?
Thanks, Grayson, and I think that's why not all voices were heard on the BBI. I mean, if we're being honest, David has spoken about persons with disability. Not all the issues from young people were listened to, because if you look at most of the recommendations, and I was lucky to have been part of some of them. Most of them spoke about unemployment. Does this BBI sort that out? I don't see it, if I'm being honest. What it sorts out is, it makes us comfortable about help as young people, but also secondly, helps out those who have business acumen. And the reality is not all young people will go into business. It's not feasible. It can't work. It's impossible to make that happen. I'm also aware of, the Courier delegation that, sent their recommendations around devolved units and constituency units. I don't see any of that within the BBI as it stands right now. And there are very many issues in terms of boundaries and trying to set those out in the current dispensation that does not work out. So was there, did they reach out to people? Maybe. Did they include all the voices in this document? I don't agree, because that's why you get issues of people booing, which is not a bad thing, so to speak. I think that's a grown zone, which is allowed and it's fine, because since they did, public forums, it's possible that people change their mind, and that's an agreeable thing. Secondly, I don't see this as a conclusive process, right? So I think of the BBI now as a recommendation to the public, so that we can then interrogate it as Kenyans and pick out what we agree on, improve on what we don't agree on, either through our leaders or through the BBI task force itself, in a manner that now includes our voices towards what we may call a referendum, or think about the laws, so to speak.
Okay, thank you. WIlkister, I want to bring you in and pick a word from what Robi has said, recommendations to the public. Do you feel as citizens we are being given an opportunity to even air out our views about the BBI, or is it being forced on us as wananchi to accept? I mean, take it or leave it. What do you think is happening around this issue of the BBI?
So Gray, if you allow me first, I'd like to say that whatever booing went on Monday should be an eye-opener for us to realize that we're interacting with a political process, and therefore political interests are involved. So it is even possible that the people who booed had their recommendations in the document itself, but because it is a political process, political interests come to play, and people act like that. So in terms of whether the document is inclusive enough, whether it captures most of what Kenyans maybe aspire for, yes, for me to some degree it does. And I think Kenyans are aware of the fact that there are certain problems that are perennial. It's on these issues. I think every year any politician who's vying will say, I'm going to build for you roads. I'm going to ensure there's connectedness in terms of water and electricity. I'm going to make the infrastructure better, and I'm going to provide for you jobs. Now, whether it even looks, or rather tries to address the issue of unemployment, and I would like to not look at this through a narrow lens. When I look at a recommendation, for example, like the seven-year tax relief, I mean, when the border business started, way back, I think around 2007 thereabout, it was a taxation that was eased, zero rated actually, on things like motorbikes, that allowed now young people who actually are the major benefactors of that to even have borders. And now it's a booming business. It contributes a lot of money to the GDP. I mean, according to statistics, around 700 shillings is made by a border each day. And we see how that, expanded the space for young people to be able to have decent employment. And I think young people, especially in rural areas, look like they're doing better than us in urban areas, because I don't know, a 23-year-old cousin of mine who's a boy probably has a wife, 2 kids, his nice small hut, he's picky, and he's stable. I mean, at the end of the day, that is what Kenyans are asking for. Can I have a roof over my head? Can I put food on my table, and such like things? Now, the 7-year tax relief does this, for example, to the young people under unemployment. Out of 10 businesses that are started, at least 5 of them fail within 2.5 years of existence. And some of the reasons attributable to this, and one of the most important ones, is the taxation. Because immediately a small micro enterprise sets up, KRA is already on its neck to collect certain amounts of money from this particular business. And we know that the MSME sector is actually the largest employer, about 90% in Kenya right now. So I think when we look at how aspirations are captured and how these things are working out, I think let us not look at them through a narrow lens of now. Let us try to look at these things as, what are the ripple effects that this will have on one sector of the economy along with other sectors of the economy. I hope I've answered your question, Greg.
Thank you, WIlkister. And Wanjiru, I want to bring you in. There is, yes, the 7-year tax relief. There is also the issue around the Higher Education Loans Board. Wanjiru, do you feel that is enough to solve the youth issues in this country?
No, I don't think it is in. Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me? I don't think that is enough for us to solve the youth problems in this country. I feel like when you tell people that you're going to make them, let me talk about the help loans. If public education was affordable, if public education is easy to, to access and affordability, we would not have to even think about how we can pay loans or not, because that would not be a problem. So coming to tell young people that we will make sure that you're not harassed to pay your loans, well, the harder thing you can do, and the most substantial thing you can do, is make sure that education itself is affordable. Then and that's why I'm saying that this the BBI report is such a band-aid, and as what David said, it's such like we are being given shiny chocolates for us to say, look, we are in the BBI, we have been considered, but we have really not been considered, because the structural problems that we're having with our social services have not been solved. The Jubilee administration has not done that in the first term, and they're trying to leave us with a document that purports to solve our problems, but really our problems are not being solved. Right now, the state of unemployment is so high. So even if you're giving us a tax break, I don't even know what you were taxing us to begin with. you have not even accounted for the tax, for the tax that we have been paying when we started paying tax. You have not showed us anything. You've not showed us public transport. You have not showed us public health. Right now, as we speak right now, there's no place where you can get a COVID test for free. In the middle of a pandemic, you cannot even get a COVID test for free. The cheapest is 5,000. And then you're coming to tell me that I should be excited about not being able to pay a help loan. So if in the event that I do get sick, what happens to me? I will just die. So to answer your question, no, it's not enough. We need more work. And this work is not that they have captured in the report. It doesn't do it for me.
Okay, David, can I get your thoughts around the same issue about the proposals in the BBI, David? Specifically for young people and the two, talked about the Education Loans Board and also the tax relief.
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks, Gray. Okay, let me start with this. I want to paraphrase Mahatma Gandhi said, Kenya has enough for everyone's needs. Sorry, I want to say this. Kenya has enough for everyone's needs, but not enough for everyone's greed. Yeah? I've seen one thing in Kenya. I've worked in some government in Kenya and county government, and I've seen Kenya has got a lot of money, but the amount of wastage, it's heart-wrenching, it's crazy. We have a spending culture. We spend too much, and the spending is at the top of the pyramid. Yeah, that contractor who comes and makes a shoddy piece of work and is paid 20 million, that's one person. We need to change our mindset as a country, yeah, and look at the bottom of the pyramid. Look at the bottom of the pyramid. You see, like we're moving for a referendum where we are paying 14 billion. If we take that 14 billion and we share it down there, it will change lives. We need to change our mindset to actually thinking of all this money we have, even if it's not a lot, but how can we actually build the country from bottom going up? We are busy talking about tax breaks. Which tax are you breaking? Nobody has a job, nobody has a business, yeah? The people you're actually solving, the problems you're solving, yeah? It doesn't affect the millions who are going to be voting, the millions who are busy screaming in the streets. You're sorting problems for a few privileged Kenyans who've got jobs, yeah, they've got business, so you want to save them from paying the taxes, which is going to supposed to help the government. What we need to be thinking is taking the money down, providing capital for the young jobless people to start business. Yeah, let me give an example. If you look, we've got MPs going around the world looking at how democracies work. A country like the UK, for example, how they work, or the US, they've got things like the job seekers allowance. If you're jobless, you're being paid to look for work or to come up with an idea to do business. If you want to start a business, they give you a small capital. And if you're really desperate to do something and you have a bright idea, a little money will change your life. We need to think from there. See, what the BBI has done, it has thought from an elitist level. Taxes. I saw the president sadly addressing some border people about help loans, like you won't be paying help loans. These are guys who've never gone to secondary school. People are like, what? So we have a disconnected leadership. We need to think from the bottom. Even one of my sisters here talked about being part of the public participation by the BBI team, So they are not to little take what you're saying, they were just doing a process, ticking the boxes that, yeah, we've done it in Nairobi, we've gone to Kisumu, we've gone to Kericho, Bomet. So the thing is, it's about changing the mindset. And I want to say that once more again, I'm so happy that, Kenyans are now having a conversation. But the problem, we're having these conversations like clandestine groups, We need an organized way where we can actually go before the podium and say, this is us, the Kenyans. We want to change our country. Let's change the conversation. Let's talk about, if you're going to spend 14 billion for a referendum, please, why don't we start? Let's wait for 5 years, we can do this thing. But let's start by, COVID has ravished our lives. So let's start by actually boosting businesses for these small young people. People cannot pay their rent, cannot take their kids to school. Let's start from there. And listen to this. Counties have got money, but counties are doing the same bad habits that the national government is doing. If you look at the Auditor General's report about the wastage in government, the answer is there. We've got money. We just need to actually be serious about dealing with wastage, and getting money to the people. People need money in the pocket. You need money in the pocket. Not taxes, not imaginary money. I need money in my pocket. So if we start thinking from there, we will change Kenya.
Thank you, David. I want to read in a few comments from our viewers who are watching on Facebook. Alfred Sigwe is saying he's watching from Mombasa. He says the youth space in the BBI agenda. Ben says he's following, from Kayole. He says the BBI is not that bad. We just need few amendments. I'll take the thoughts of my panelists on that we need a few amendments. Amolo Simba says very insightful engagements. Chacha says, in the matter of inclusion of public participation, I don't believe they have done their due process to get a good representation of the whole country. With a population of over 40 million, 200 or 300 persons representation, I believe is not adequate. Jassi Kasioki says, following very important discussion. But guys, let's unmask the BBI. All these issues are just included so as to have the main agenda to be pushed through. I agree with David that the main thing is the amendment to include the new offices, and all the other important quote unquote matters are just to help the political interested to be shuttled forward. Miriam is also watching with us, Grace and Berry. Thank you so much for watching on Facebook. And maybe the question I would ask to one of my panelists, Robi, do you feel that we just need a few amendments, as one of the viewers is saying, or we need all the many amendments?
I don't think we need most of what's in the BBI, and I've shared my reservations, especially with regard to the constitutional amendments bit of things within the BBI. And this goes back to something a friend of mine who's also a lawyer sort of mentioned. There's nothing that a different document can change this country that this constitution that we have now can't do. There's completely nothing. So I don't see the pressure for why. And Wanjiru, mentioned that we haven't implemented the 2010 constitution yet. We're already hurrying it or bungling it out because it doesn't suit a few members. And if you look at the constitutional amendments, you can see the thread within it is to serve the interests of those who are already in leadership, and that's very selfish in my point of view. So I think we need very few amendments, and all of them that we need are not within the constitutional measures that are within the BBI. If you talk about the Youth Commission, that's something that can happen within an act of parliament. There are so many commissions that have been created through acts of parliament and not constitutional commissions. And any other thing that would sort of serve the interests of what the constitution serves now can happen through legislative means or policy means. So I honestly don't see the need for the constitutional measures section of the BBI.
Thank you, Robi. You've really highlighted or touched on my next question, which I want WIlkister to start us off by giving her thoughts on this. The report has also proposed the establishment of a youth commission to advise national account governments on the design, implementation, and evaluation of pro-youth policies, as well as ensure mainstreaming the youth perspective and decision making. And this is one of the things that is going really to attract young people, for lack of a better word. What are your thoughts on this proposal, WIlkister?
I think, first of all, the proposal, I think, came from young people in the country, and we cannot ignore that fact. And having the Youth Commission, I think, for me, solves the problem that we've been having in terms of coordinating the youth function. One of the things that people in this space have really been trying to push is the professionalization of youth work and mainstreaming of young people in different private and public bodies. So if these are some of the things that this commission is coming to cure, then for me, it is a good thing. And looking even at the National Youth Council, which I believe most of the people here have interacted with, or either pushed when they had the amendment bill that was, that is still being debated in Parliament. And for us as young people, we are looking at the National Youth Council as a place where we can call home, a place where we can get coordinated and things like that. But as it turns out, this is not, the body that is as powerful enough for young people as we'd wish for it to be. As it is right now, there's still no council with the National Youth council itself. So it is still problematic for us, and we even now past discussing the bill, and now it's obvious that we're going to have appointments instead of universal suffrage for young people. So you see, this already makes that council as a body for young people problematic. And even in terms of it being a repository for information on young people, including, civil society organizations, CBOs, FBOs, that work with the youth of this country, it still cannot perform that function. So I think the fact that we have the committee, we have the commission as a recommendation in the BBI document is a good thing, and that it has some of the functions we as young people in this space, the professionals and just the young people engaging as youth in these spaces participating, it does give, the youth function credibility. It does give the youth function a place where it can domicile, and at least at this point we can say now there's a body we can hold accountable when we see the youth function not working. Just look at, in terms of the hierarchy, there's a directorate of youth in the office of the DP, office of the president. You come to the NYC, the youth officers. In fact, at this point, the youth officers are very idle. I don't even know whether they understand their functions as well as they should. So for me, having a body that is going to help make the coordination of the youth function seamless in the country is a plus. Of course, it doesn't cure all the problems we have as young people, but I think we also have an opportunity to step in and create this commission, because you realize what this recommendation does. It doesn't give the how. It just gives a recommendation on this can be done, but not the how. So young people still have an opportunity to make this commission work for them.
Okay, thank you, WIlkister. I want to bring in Wanjiru, and my question to you still is on the commission, the youth commission that is being proposed by the BBI. What are your thoughts on it and the model that is being fronted by those who are pro-BBI?
All right, I appreciate WIlkister's explanation, because when I read about the Youth Commission in the BBI, I was wondering, okay, but we have a National Youth Council. We also have youth departments within, the county governments. We also have a Ministry of Youth under the national government. And so I was wondering, are they serious about the Youth Commission, or are they giving us something for us to hold on to so that we can say that, listen, we've been represented? I don't know how the Youth Commission is going to work. I would really like to see it. It seems to me like a good idea on paper, but then I feel like there's going to be a lot of, duplication of roles and people not knowing exactly what they're doing, because there are so many titles under the name youth that it's a bit, it's a bit of a web. There's too much. I don't know how it's going to work. It's a good idea on paper, but I'm not sure about the implementation of it.
Okay, thank you, Wanjiru. David, I want to come to you still on the issue of the Youth Commission, and even there is a proposal still in the BBI that 4 out of the 7 members of the commission are going to be young people. What effect would this have in the operationalization of the commission and for it to tackle the issues of young people? David.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Let me start by this. There's something I used to like using, a quote, yeah? For God so loved the world that he never formed a committee. Okay, next. There's a gentleman who said one time that kama so and so hizi kwa Kenya ikue ifungwe, ilikuwa disbanded. He said Kenya ifungwe na kila mtu aende nyumbani. So for 1 second, I laughed for what he said, but now I'm taking him so seriously. Listen to this, and everybody take me seriously. Let us assume that we close the country, we disband, everybody goes home. And we say, where's the money? Put the money on one side and put all Kenyans on one side. And then we say now, we need a few people to lead this country on how to manage this money so that we can all enjoy. That is what we must think about. What we are doing right now is we are piling leaders upon leaders, commissions upon commissions. There's a lot of duplication. It's wastage. A new youth commission is another mouth to feed, That is another team with per diems, with salaries, with allowances, with big hotels, with big cars, wastage. So my advice to the youth of Kenya, delete the word commission and replace with the word fund. We don't want people to be put in an office to come and enjoy and close the door and eat on their own. We want a fund, a pot of money that will be given to the youth. I used to be part of a budget making process where I used to work in a government in Kenya. And what we used to do was the nurses, the doctors used to come and say, you know, the World Health Organization, there's I think a convention agreement that 5% of every budget must go to health. So in whatever we did, we knew that there's a ceiling that we have to give to these guys. And they used to stick to it. So the youth should actually tell the national government and every government, all the 47 counties, that we want a youth fund, namweke 5% or whatever percentage. That money will be used, will be channeled to youth, young people who want to start business. If you want to buy a border, you take the money from the fund. If you want to pay for further studies, you take the money from the fund. You want to open a saloon, you take the money from the fund. That is how to get money into your pocket. The whole story of commissions, and that is all a fallacy. To start with, we need a small government. Realistically, if you look at the wage bill of 50%, do you remember way back in about 20 years ago, we had the structural adjustment program in the country, where we downsized the government and made the government smaller, but the private sector bigger. We need to get back there. We made a mistake when we introduced devolution in Kenya. We took a new set of governments, 47 of them, and then we retained the national government in the same level. I was very shocked that after giving counties a 15%, ministries which were fully devolved were still remaining with the same level of funding or even higher. That is where the problem is. National government officials who were supposed to have gone home at the advent of devolution remained, and they are still earning the salary. That is where the problem is. BBI should be about dealing with where we went wrong when devolution started. We've got so much wastage. So let's think about, somebody said in Bombers, it's all about money. Truly, it's all about money. So show us the money. No commissions, no referendums, show us the money. And every Kenyan must have money in their pocket. So let's find the channels. In most counties, what they've done, they formed cooperatives. So border cooperatives, farmer cooperatives. Then the county does a budget every year, and they put a percentage of money to go to the cooperatives, and it's working. That's where we need to go. Commissions, no. So the youth of Kenya, let's not be lied to that we are going to have this commission to be rosy, and we can have meetings. Meetings, for God so loved the world, he never formed a committee. So no committees, no commissions.
Thank you so much, David. What are we? Robi, I want to bring you in still on the issue of the Youth Commission. And I've been seeing you really talking about this even online. And there is also a group of young leaders who had their take on this somewhere on an online platform. And I saw the backlash around the issue of young and youth and all that. But what is your take on the issue of the Youth Commission as a solution to the problems that we are facing as young people? Robi.
I generally agree with what David is saying. I don't think we need any other, commission for young people. And my reasoning is there is already a National Youth Council. What we need to be asking ourselves is, why is it not working? I mean, it's a policy thing that should be working. So why is it not working? Secondly, I think in 2019, there was something called the National Youth Development Policy or something that has still not been implemented. Yet we still want to run and create a different commission that would still apparently or ideally work on the same issues. I think a few months ago, there was a conversation or a petition to the president to reduce the number of commissions because they're very expensive and burdensome on this country. To think about this, I think there's a commission on skin diseases. Why do we need that now when our health system is already improving and growing? And the truth is, these commissions, while they're well intended, they become very expensive and very personal. And the more you create these commissions and committees, you're also creating more interest in these bodies. And this goes to the next question around the setup of the Youth Commission, if we get to set it up. Why do we only need 4 young people within the commission? at least 4 young people. That then means there's already an interest of, women leaders who would also want interest in there and split this, like they split, a piece of cake or something, which I don't see the point of it, honestly. I think we're reinventing so many things at the same time when we already have systems in place that we only need to work on, develop, and hold those who are within those systems accountable.
Okay, thank you. I would want to take a few comments from Facebook, and one of them here is very interesting, and it almost touches on the next question that I was to pose to you, my panelists this evening. It's the issue of the structure of the government that is being proposed by the BBI. Rosalo on Facebook says, and I want to quote, it's quite long, having cabinet members as members of the legislature is taking us back to previous problems. The president having unchecked appointments is taking us back to Moi's regime. She moves on to talk about the judiciary. Ombudsman isn't bad, but having the president appoint him or her is interfering in the independence of the judiciary. This all seems to strengthen the executive and weaken the other arms of government. End of quote. That is Ross Olo from Facebook. I want to begin with you, WIlkister. What do you make about the structure of government that is being proposed by the BBI? I know this is one of the contentious issues, and even on Monday when the report was being launched, we saw the divisions, the lines were drawn clearly, because one side of the coin was reading from a different page, the other side of the coin was reading from the different page, and that is at the national level. What are your thoughts on this?
I think, first of all, for me, the current structure of the executive, well, it is the president, the deputy president, the majority leader in parliament, and then on both sides you have the deputy majority leader, and then the National Assembly. Forgetting the name. On this other side of what is being proposed, we have the president at the top, the deputy president, the prime minister, and 2 deputy prime ministers. The structure is ideal and what is being proposed in the document. And there's a fallacy around a supreme president. For me, power translates to control of resources. And resources now, we're going to have 35% going to the counties and 65% remaining for the president to control. That for me translates to a lessening of the presidency, and even the Punguza Mizigo bill, which really wanted to lessen the power at the top so that we do not have communities fighting, with blood to be in the top seat at the presidency. So for me, it doesn't, the idea of a supreme president is not something that is real. I think it is in the way we are thinking of this document as something that is very new, it's very foreign, it is hateable, it is rejectable. But when we look keenly at what the proposals are, it is really not what we are making them to be.
Robi, I want to hear your thoughts still on the structure of the executive or the government that is being proposed.
Grayson, just to begin with, I'm a huge proponent of the current constitution we have, and so forgive me if my comments will be very extreme in that regard. But WIlkister says that more power is more control of resources, and I think that's the thinking we want to come from. The thinking that resources have to be controlled by a president. The whole idea is the resources that remain with the national government should be controlled by the national government, which includes oversight by the National Assembly and the Senate to a large extent. Therefore, looking into the, if it's a money bill or if it's a finance bill or whatnot. Secondly, and this is my fear, we've already had, and this was the reason why the new constitution came into play, we've already had lessons to draw from a supreme president of sorts that, you know, controls the appointment of, you know, cabinet secretaries and pulls them from members of parliament, which is what we were trying to run away from. Because if, for example, I'm a member of parliament for Kuria West and you appoint me as a minister for water, what would I ideally do? To serve my own interests, I would direct possibly all the water I can to Kuria West and leave out the rest of the country. And that was the whole idea around not having cabinet secretaries as, you know, politicians or members of parliament of that sort, right? So in my view, I don't know what the thinking was for this, because ideally the whole BBI thing was to make this inclusive. In this view, and basically from what WIlkister has said, this doesn't seem to be an inclusive sort of system of government that's coming into play. What it's doing is it's basically leading the whole power to a factor that's up there and not, you know, what we were thinking about in terms of bringing this down to the Mwananchi to then decide how I would wish for my resources to be spent or to be directed.
Thank you, Robi. Wanjiru, I want to hear your thoughts on the issue of the structure of government that is being proposed by the BBI, and also maybe you comment about how at the highest level of leadership in this country, still, there's no agreement about this structure.
All right. Thank you very much, Gray. When I was listening to the speeches made when the BBI was being launched, they kept talking about this country, we will not have bloodshed, we will not have winner takes all that. And they went on and on about discussing how this report is supposed to deal with our tribal politics and our bloodthirsty, blood-shedding kind of politics. They make the assumption that young people can afford to be bloody, because the nature of violence is that it's very expensive and it's also very time consuming. Young people don't have that money. The people who make people fight are actually the politicians themselves. And suggesting that now you're going to expand the executive and have a deputy prime minister and all these things is going to reduce, you know, adipose selection violence and blood is a lie. I do not believe that, because Kenyans, number one, are not even as tribal as this BBI suggests. I mean, as they were suggesting when they were launching the report. I think the problem that we have is a problem of inequality. And does this expanded executive solve the problem of inequality? I do not think so, because if you're going to give a deputy prime minister, a prime minister, it doesn't do anything for me who just wants to access healthcare. It doesn't do anything for me who just wants to go to school without having to worry about school fees and loans and all these things. So when you're talking about election, I mean, and I also want to appreciate how we have all understood that politics and negotiation, I mean, is about the negotiation and distribution of resources. Will we distribute these resources easier when we have a prime minister? I don't think so. Will we distribute these resources easier when a cabinet secretary comes from the member of parliament? I don't think so. It is unconstitutional. I reject it. I continue to reject it. And yeah, it is a lie. It does not do anything for me as a Kenyan who just wants to accept social services.
Grayson, if I may say something.
Thank you,
real quick
David.
on the Prime Minister.
Please.
Right.
WIlkister, go ahead.
Thank you. So the structure in terms of where the Prime Minister comes from, the Prime Minister comes from the majority party in Parliament, right? If you look back at our politics around 2013, when we had TNA, URP, ODM, WIPA, and whatnot. And we also understand that our political landscape is in such a way that we organize based on our ethnic regions, and thus our governments mostly are formed from, you know, caucusing with different regions. So in 2013, we had a unique situation where the ruling party, which gave us the president, was not the party with the majority number of members of parliament. So in 2013, we would have averted the whole situation we had with the handshake if it was this particular from the party that is majority in government. So for me, our election is in such a way that you know, 50 plus 1% is the winner. 49% is a loser. And what that happens, what that creates is a position where the president feels like, it seems as if the president governs the 50 plus 1%, and the opposition governs the 49%. The reason why this is thought to take away the winner takes all mentality is that even the 49% that are thought to be led by, for example, the party that would form the majority in parliament, are not going to be left out. They are going to be in the government. And for me, it looks like we are going to have a government of national unity from the time this report will be adopted, if it will be adopted, up to the period when we'll feel like we've audited our constitution and this doesn't work for us this way anymore.
Okay, thank you. David, finally, on the issue of the structure of government.
Can I respond? Great. Can I respond just for a minute to what WIlkister said? All right, so I just want to say that the spirit of devolution that has been captured in the Constitution is meant to handle the fact that you don't feel, just because the president does not come from your area, you do not feel like you're left out of development. That was the purpose of devolution. That was why we have a devolved government, so that the resources from the center, from the treasury can get to the mashinani through devolution. I think suggesting that the prime minister allows other people to feel like they're included, for me, that does not really convince me, because we already have the devolution, which is meant to bring services closer to the people on the ground.
Okay, thank you. David, unless otherwise, please go ahead.
Thank you. I'm very patient. I want to say something. Somebody wrote on Twitter the other day that Tanzania almost finishing counting the elections. The leader is going to win and he's going to take everything, and that is democracy. Yeah. So personally, I want an election where the leader takes everything and the opposition takes their position and checks the one who is in government to make sure that they are doing the right thing. That is democracy around the world. I'm even wondering, the diplomats who came to bomb us, I'm sure they were wondering, what are these people doing? Because a democracy, you vote, the winner becomes president. We are trying to look at this history, yeah? In 2002, we had an election. 2005, we had a referendum. 2007, an election. 2010, a referendum. 2013, elections. 2015, we had this Okoa Kenya referendum. 2017, elections. 2020, we have the BBI. What is a problem? Yeah. Do you want to share government, a government of national unity? We have a problem, and I've said it before. It is a few people's greed that we are trying to deal with. Yeah. If, for example, we have two people as presidents, because what we are trying to do is we are trying to say that we want this man and this man to be both leaders in the country, so that everybody, gets to win, which doesn't really make sense, okay? Because what the BBI is saying is that the winner is going to take everything, and the opposition is just going to be the leader of majority in parliament. What we have doesn't make sense. So what I'm trying to say is that the winner has to take all in a democracy, yeah? The current constitution of Kenya, that question never came to me, but I need to say that I support the constitution of Kenya 2010, 101%. It is the best, we just need to implement it. And if these people who are saying we share the cake are so hungry, then pay them more salary. Let the leader of majority get the same salary as the president. Yeah? And let him have a cabinet, a shadow cabinet, to be checking the government in office. This is democracy. Look at the countries around the world. Why do we want to reinvent the wheel? What are we so special to try and reinvent a new democracy? It will never work. Trust me, we have always created a constitutional moment to feed some people's greed. It is about time we say no. In fact, COVID, I was telling somebody the other day, the world is so tired at the moment. COVID has almost finished us. So we've got no chills. The Americans did the Black Lives Matter protests. Of course, no more chills. We are tired. We've just almost faced death. So nothing scares us anymore. Anything that is bringing a problem to our comfort in life, to our peace, we say no. This BBI is going to give us a problem. One thing somebody said a few minutes ago is that leaders threaten us that there's going to be violence if 1, 2, 3 happens. Kenyans are no longer going to fight. When you hear us saying we're no longer going to fight, we are serious. We are tired. because every counties have sorted the problem of the violence that was there before. Counties have money. So in fact, what the solution, I like giving solutions, so excuse me on this. What we need to be thinking is we need to have money in people's pockets. If I was a youth, if I was the people living with disabilities, if I was anybody else who is disenfranchised and feels that they want to be represented by this constitution, get this money coming out through word of mouth, the 35% to the counties. Counties, in fact, the money in the county as well, there should be more. But then again, when the money goes down, it has to go to people's pockets. So let's create these funds. If they are adding 20% to make it 35%, then let the money, the extra percentage go into funds. I want Kenyans to start being selfish. Don't think that if Raila eats, you're going to be full by osmosis. No, your kids are going to be sleeping hungry. Don't think that if your leader is in office, you feel good and so you're going to be able to live well. No, be selfish. You need money in your pocket. So whatever we are fighting for now is money in our pocket. If I'm a Mama Mboga, I want to see where I'm going to get this money. We normally tell people in the counties, form cooperatives, get cash into your pockets. So this is the right time we need to actually have a conversation on, let's stop this thing of, let's have a small government at the top so that we can save money to come to our pockets. Instead of saying, let's have a big government at the top, those guys see the more salaries we pay, the more allowances, more vehicle gasolines they're going to be having, the more per diems they enjoy. You guys need to know how much a civil servant on job group, you know, those like the big people, you know, how much do they get per day of being out of their office? It could be nothing less than 20,000 per day. And they're always out. That is wastage. So we need to have a conversation on a smaller government. There's something else I wanted to say because I've got the mic. See, what really needs to be in the BBI, if you were to ask me, we need to talk about the national debt. It's crazy. These guys are going to France everywhere borrowing, and we're the ones to pay. The national debt should be subject to national conversation. Second thing, wage bill. Why is the government, national government, paying 50% for wages? Retrench, wale waze wote washapita miaka ya kuretire nyumbani, so that we can get space for young people to come in and get jobs. So address the wage bill now. That's a conversation we need to have. Stop the issue of BBI. The other thing is the youth talk about fund, not commissions. Women talk about fund, not commissions. The people living with disabilities talk about money in your pocket. After the election, after you vote yes, yes, yes with the BBI, mutasahau, they'll never come to you again. They will never come to you again, and you're going to die poor. So let's find a way of having the public. Let's have another conversation on how we can make money get into people's pockets. Thank you.
Thank you. Two final issues I want us to talk about this evening before we go into the session of wrapping up. Robi, I want to begin with Parliament. Parliament has also been affected in some extent by the BBI. People feel that the Senate have been reduced to, for lack of a better word, useless house, or a smaller house, or a weaker house. What are your thoughts around the proposals on the role of Parliament in general?
Yeah, Grayson, I've also noted, some of those changes, including, how Parliament would pass laws, and the interplay between Parliament and the President, and the joint committees of the National Assembly and the Senate. But again, going back to my point, I again do not feel there's anything wrong with the current state of things. The issue for me is, as it stands now, Parliament has stopped becoming a representative parliament, but a very selfish parliament. People act on their own, such selfish interests. And I've had this conversation with my own member of parliament, asking him why he's taken bribes to vote on different bills, and why he passed some bills when they indeed affect, people from our constituency. So in that sense, I don't see the need, but I kind of see there's a loss on, women and young people, especially with regard to Article 98, where in the Senate it needs, one man and one woman representing the young people and women. So that has been struck off, which is notable. Secondly, I see some level of, again, control, which goes back to the whole presidency aspect. Control in the sense of how much power the president has in terms of seeing to it that, you know, bills and acts of parliament sort of go through, and what's the process and procedure within the National Assembly. So this might include, you know, sort of changing the, what are they called? The processes and procedures that operate within Parliament. And so you will have situations where bills may not be able to go through as they were intended by, you know, Parliament, because of interests that emanate from either the cabinet or the national government.
Sorry, thank you, Robi, for your thoughts on that. WIlkister would also want to hear your thoughts around the story, the state of Parliament, sorry, and the proposals in the BBI around Parliament, and the scrapping of some of the positions, including the nomination of young women, of women, sorry, and even young people in the Senate and the National Assembly. What are your thoughts around that?
Of course, I think the immediate feeling for young people, myself too, when I saw that the two seats, the ones from the National Assembly and also the ones for Senate to represent young people were taken away, young people and women were taken away. But then I kept asking myself the question that who are young people and where are we as young people? Who we are, number one, is the majority of the population in Kenya, right? In terms of even the voting population, young people still have a majority in terms of numbers. And even the first time in 2022, we're going to have the median age of the voter being 26 years. So this already positions young people as key determinants of the election's outcome in terms of who we vote into power. I do not know if that is what informed the thought process behind taking away the seats. Now that said, I do not look at Senate as a weaker house in terms of the proposals made. And for me, it's a win, especially for the women, because it's going to be a house that is 50-50 in terms of gender parity. And for the first time, we're going to have women having an equal vote, most especially in Senate. We know that members of Senate who are, for example, nominated cannot conduct house business, which is voting. They do not have the power to vote. So having women who are now going to be able to vote on decisions and even influence things towards particular agenda, caucused maybe by a group of women, is something to celebrate. And then I think for me, it's also important that we know that National Assembly is a house of numerous interests. So is the Senate. We, first of all, have the parliamentary parties who have their own interests. We have the members of parliament who carry two interests, that of themselves and for the people that they represent. So having to find a place where there's a convergence of these interests is difficult. It's not easy, but then it can help the people in terms of who you elect to represent your interests. Because at the end of the day, if BBI was put on the floor of the House, we know that parties are going to whip their members, the parliamentary parties are going to whip their members to vote for or not for the BBI, report or a referendum for that matter.
Thank you. David, let me come to you. Wanjiru, if you're here, please let me know. David, I want to hear your thoughts around Parliament and also the issue of the judiciary. There's a proposal in the BBI to have an ombudsman who will be supervising the judiciary per se and will be sitting in the JSC. But then people feel there are some quarters who feel that this person should not be appointed by the president. What are your thoughts on that?
Okay, thank you, Gray. Let me start with the last point that you mentioned. Of course, if everybody knows that, even the people who are proposing this know that it's actually wrong to control the judiciary. We need to have the independence of the judiciary. We need to respect the sanctity of the independent institutions. So whoever suggested that was being mischievous. And as I said before, these suggestions were made by an old school lot of old men who believe that Kenya is the Kenya of the past. They know what they are doing is wrong. That is a sad thing. Yeah. There's a quote which is normally attributed to Barack Obama. He normally says, the arc of the moral universe is wide, but it bends towards justice. Let me tell you one thing. Anything being done by the BBI, which is not right, which is done in bad faith by the leaders whom we entrust, is going to backfire. Because eventually it will squeeze. I mean, if the president who is going to come in after 2022 muzzles the judiciary, there's going to be an uprising. Things are going to go wrong. So it will break. So it is better we solve this problem now before we get to that position where there'll be an uprising in the country. My brother Robi has said the current constitution is amazing. We should keep it as it is. To the Senate, I have I'm disappointed by the senators themselves who are currently sitting in the Senate because they are quiet. These are retirees almost. These are elderly people, very senior, intelligent Kenyans, and they are quiet. And they know it's wrong. We've got a good senator, should I mention her name? Ledamo Lekina. I've been really pressing him on Twitter, please rise up, Team Kenya, speak. Yeah, bring the voices of the people. No, Kenyans want somebody who can speak on their behalf. We are trying to defend the Senate, but if they are quiet, we are helpless. They must rise up. What is happening is wrong. Senate is supposed to protect the counties. Senate, the vote of a senator is a representative vote of the county where they come from. So you guys visualize this. And one thing I normally say, Senate's indoor, you don't go man and woman, but then they decided it's going to be a marriage, so fine. So we take a man and a woman to Senate. There's a vote on behalf of the county. The male and the female disagree. So what happens? Will there be a half vote from one and then a half vote for the other one going left and right? It's a mess. It's not workable. Will they agree to vote as one or will they disagree? It's impossible. Another thing, now that you brought this issue, the issue of parliament, some counties are going to be having, nobody has talked about this, amazingly. Some counties are going to be having one MP, some counties will have two, some counties will have, the sub-counties, constituencies. Some constituencies will have 3 MPs. So the issue of CDF, are the 3 going to have a meeting and say, Sasa tugawe kitu 3/4? I mean, how are they going to divide the CDF? And one of them becomes a chairman, the other one, I mean, how are they going to manage themselves? So the issue about the parliament, if anything, we should be reducing the number of parliamentarians we have. But now that we've decided to increase them, it's still very sad. But the entire thinking around BBI is messed up. If you go through it and apply it in real life, it's not workable. And that is why, that's what I was thinking. This is why they kept it a secret for so long, because they knew that if it goes out, you guys are going to tear it apart. And this is what you're doing now. So it's crazy, it's not normal, it's abnormal. And it is very good that we are discussing this. Kenya belongs to all of us. It belongs to you and me. So you cannot say, ikitu 1 million signatures today to petition mara moja mpende msipende. How now? And somebody else was saying today that they want to, we've been talking about secession. So BBI will stop secession. Who gives up? Who wants to secede and join Uganda or to join Tanzania? I mean, the thing is, secede if you want, who cares? Leave Kenya and go. But the thing is, we must talk, if we want to have a country, a constitution is a binding document for all of us. Your signature is as strong as my signature. So if you think your signature is the only signature, then no, we are not talking. So my sister there talked about the booing, booing showed us that we have a problem. Do you know, the people who are the silent majority are the strongest. When 6,000 people were booing in Bomas, 40 million Kenyans were watching and laughing. Yeah, one lady stood up in Bomas and shouted down at one of the leaders, and the Kenyan was watching and wondering, now, this lady, we are so many here, we can move in there and just move things out, So the thing is, we have to agree, not agree to disagree. Those who are saying yes, whether you like it or not, have decided to say, let us agree to disagree. And now let me say this last point. This is very, very important. Everybody must listen to this. Somebody told me, I believed this, that there is an intention to have the BBI as a contested vote. That is the only way they can get money out of the treasury for campaigns. If we all say that, yeah, we vote yes, there'll be no campaign, so guys are going to be broke. These leaders, like one of my best former governor from Bomet, he's a strong devolution supporter. And I was very sad to see him in Boma saying, this thing is clean, no problem. Yeah, I know Isaac Ruto is very, very intelligent, by the way. So he was very, okay, let me not mention names, but let me listen to this. Any leader who says that the BBI is clean is lying. That's all.
Thank you so much, David. I wish we had an hour or two. We would have argued about David's points. Wanjiru, you have the honor of giving us your final thoughts about the issue of Parliament and judiciary and what the BBI proposes towards these two very key institutions or arms of government. Wanjiru, please.
All right. Thank you very much. I'm sorry about my network. I will insist that we have an unconstitutional parliament. I will insist that we do not need a BBI. What we need to do is to implement the constitution. In terms of representation, I wish that the pressure would be put on the political parties to make sure that they field parties that represent diversity and represent more women, youth, and people living with disabilities. I think it's possible to do that at the political party level. When it comes to the judiciary, I saw the judiciary ombudsman who will be appointed by the president and approved by the National Assembly. And I just asked, is independence of the judiciary a joke? What are we doing with this document? What is in the judiciary supposed to be independent? Is it the executive supposed to work on its own independently? What is separation of powers? Do we not understand what separation of powers mean? All this time, has that been a joke? So I don't agree with that. I reject that. I think that the judiciary should be left alone the way it is, with the Judicial Service Commission independent and to function the way that they're meant to function. And I think that the power structure should be left as it is in the Constitution. Let's implement the Constitution. And again, the parliament needs to be dissolved because it is unconstitutional. You cannot have an unconstitutional parliament debating over an unconstitutional BBI, doing unconstitutional things. It is ridiculous. The unconstitutionality of everything is just unconstitutional. Yeah, that's
you
it.
had to do that. I was waiting for you not to do it. Robi, I want to come to you still on the issue of the independence of the judiciary. And then as you do that, I would start with you as we wrap up. I also want to hear your final comments. And this is the question: what is your position on the BBI report and why? So as you respond to the issue of the judiciary, also answer that question for me, and then we'll call it an evening. Robi, really quick.
Thanks a lot, Grayson. So on the judiciary ombudsman and that introduction of it, and this goes back to David's point about wastage. As a country, we already have the Commission on Administrative Justice, or what we know as the Ombudsman's Office. Within its mandate, the Ombudsman Office can take in, including issues to do with the judiciary. So it's anything related to public service, right? So if I find challenges even within the judiciary, I can easily take them to the JSC, and within the JSC, there's already a representative for the public, right? So there's that option, or go to the ombudsman, and I think it will still go back to the Judicial Service Commission. So I don't see this, mission creep that the Office of the President is trying to bring in. And I think it might be a reflection of what happened in 2017 and the appointment of the Chief Justice going forward, because already it's starting to become political and heated, right? In terms of my position on the BBI report, I feel like I'm at loss here, Grayson, because while I really appreciate some bits and pieces of it, especially with the legislative, amendments that are coming in, I am at loss because I know that all of this are what David calls handmaidens of the main agenda, which is to create, different positions. So as it stands now, I think that this is a conversation starter. There are recommendations to us as Kenyans. Let's interrogate them. Let's pick out what we feel is right at this moment. But also this comes against a backdrop of the country being, one, broke. As it stands now, the Treasury has put a freeze for 3 years on public recruitment. As it stands now, we have a debt that's killing us and that's burdening us so badly. As it stands now, we have so many graduates, almost 800,000 who get into the job market. I don't have a place to go to. As it stands now, we're struggling with a pandemic that's already being, harassed around, and we're taking it for a joke. So as we think about the BBI, let's think about it against a backdrop of some of these issues. And then lastly, which is very important, there's something I think Denzel Washington once said: you cannot legislate on love. You can't make laws for people to love each other. You can't make laws for people to appreciate and accept each other's tribes and whatnot. This is a conversation that starts from the other recommendations that have come in the TJRC report that is already out there but hasn't been implemented. So there are different factors in terms of us as Kenyans accepting each other and going forward as a citizenry. So that's my comment, Grayson. Thanks.
Thank you. Wanjiru, let me come to you. What is your position on the BBI and why? Very fast.
Okay, my position on the BBI is that I reject it. I reject the unconstitutionality of the BBI. For me, I reject it. I want it burnt to the ground. I want to throw water and the baby and the bucket and the basin, everything, because of the unconstitutionality of it all. However, for the amendments that they intend to introduce without having to do constitutional amendments, that can be explored without necessarily having to go, the constitutional amendment way. Number two, we need to focus, we need to shift our attention back to the unconstitutionality of the parliament. And I also want us, especially as young people, to focus our attention on the provision of public services. I feel like, and I will insist that we're the generation that came of age when Kenya was not working for us, when we did not have public transport, we don't have a public healthcare system that we can, that you don't have to, every time you get on a border, you're scared because if I get an accident, that's it, and so for me, I'll just say we deserve good things. A working public service is one of the things we deserve. I don't think the BBI will give that to us, but it can be done with the constitution as it is and with devolution, as devolution is. So I reject it. I think that we can do a lot with our constitution, but if there is a way, if we can amend some of the things that we already have in law without having to go the constitutional amendment way, then we can explore that. But the BBI as it stands, I reject it.
Thank you. By the way, guys, I like the way Wanjiru is saying rejecting a low tone. I reject it, but she's rejecting it. David, let me come to you. What is your position on the BBI and why?
All right. Okay. So as I finalize, before I give my position, I want to tell the president that this is not a constitutional moment, and his friend, handshake friend, we are in a COVID moment. If anything, we should be taking moments of silence for the people who are actually very sick. COVID has really become serious in the counties at the moment. I've heard so many stories about like Momet, CCs and CEOs. There's a security guy who died. So much is happening in the counties. COVID is becoming real, and that is what we should be concentrating on as a country. It was very sad that we may have exhausted the COVID money before COVID actually came in. So this is when we need the money. Yeah, and that's the main thing. We need to think about that and forget about the constitutional changes. The other thing to the president also is that parliament has to be dissolved if possible. Otherwise, all this is going to be zero. How about this? We have an election, we have a new government, and then now we sit down and talk about a constitutional change if there's need for that. Finally, I want to leave something for the people in the counties, because I know that Kenya is, every part of Kenya is a county, including Nairobi, which they want to take to national government. If the national government through BBI wants to be getting ministers from the MPs, supposing at the counties as well, county governors get CECs from the MCAs. If we are poaching the legislature to be the executive at the national government, is it okay then for counties to poach the legislature at the county level to be the executive? What I'm trying to say is that we have a good constitution at the moment, separation of the different arms of government. The executive does executive work, the legislature, they do their work, the judiciary, they do their work. We should not mix things up. It won't be good for the country. So that's my thought. I think the CSs, apart from those who've been throwing tear gas, they've been doing very well. I mean, they do a good job. They concentrate on their professional work and they deliver. The legislatures as well have been doing a very bad job sucking up to the executive, which is wrong. So I think Kenyans as well, as we go electing our leaders, let's choose strong leaders who are not yes men, okay? And as for the people who are really pushing for the BBI, see what they want jobs. These guys want jobs, they want good salaries. So why don't we just have a compromise and say, BBI, let's do it after the elections. But now you guys want salaries, so let's think of a package for the leader of the opposition, yeah? Come up with a law and then just give him enough money to sort himself out and his people. That is where the problem is. So we don't have to share problems of two families. We are nationalizing the problems of two people, which is not good. We are becoming like a mafia country where two warlord families have to shake hands for us not to fight. We've not sung that law as a country. So it is time. There's a lady, I don't know what her name is, who gave a very good saying about we cannot pay for our school fees. Why are we doing this? Yet we actually need to be fending for ourselves. It's a time that every Kenyan thinks about themselves. As I said before, money for you and forget about them. Think about yourself first.
Thank you.
For the constitution, my position is no. It's no, no, no. Even the amendments, no point for amendments, just no.
Thank you, David Mutai. WIlkister, please wrap this up for us.
Thank you, Grayson, for the opportunity. And I think I'd like to start by telling a very small and short story. Those once two men who lived in a village somewhere that was very interior. So what these people used to do is every day they had to go uphill to fetch water so that they're able to survive downhill. Now, on one of those occasions, one of the guys told his friend, how about we make a tunnel that will allow us get water come down without us having to labor in terms of going uphill. The other guy did not see the sense in it, therefore he ignored, did not participate and all that. This man did exactly what he told the other, except he directed the water to himself alone. All right? Selfish of him. Where does this leave us as a nation? Where does this leave us as a people? It means that if there is a moment that allows for us to have some of our aspirations as Kenyans taken care of, I say let us take advantage of it. If we do not take advantage of it, those that are selfish enough to have their voices, their reasons, and everything catered for will take the chunk of what Kenyans stand to benefit. So my appeal is that we take part in the process. And I remember young people on social media told us that we should not make a position for them. We should not tell them what to do. They want to read the document on their own, understand, reject, or accept it. And I am, this is now to the young people to not be left out of the process because it's something that is new and rejectable. I mean, take your time to read the document, take your time to understand, consult, look at it in terms of what works for you and decide whether to go or against it. Where I sit right now, I see some of the proposals that young people worked hard to front in front of the task force, and also proposals that women fronted in front of the task force. And for me, they make sense. And that is why I stand to say the BBI is not a perfect document. It is not going to end all our problems, but we have an opportunity to improve it. So let's improve it.
WIlkister, Aduma, thank you so much for your comments. Robi, Chacha, thank you for joining us this evening. David Mutai and Wanjiru, Nguhi. And this has been a very good discussion, courtesy of Siasa Place. And thank you for watching, for those of you who are watching on Facebook, and to my panelists for sharing your insights and sentiments around the issue of the BBI. That has been this Facebook Live. See you next time. My name is Grayson Marwa. Thank you and have a good evening. Grace?
Yeah.
You're still in the office? Sawa.
Yeah, I am.
Thank you so much. Mi nataka kwenda bwana.
Umetoka live?
Sawa. Asanteni sana. Oh, we are not live. Tumetoka.
Thank God.
WIlkister, 1 minute. You know, I was going to reply to you, nikasema tumetoa a good speech, so let me not say anything. Unajua, wamesema, sikia, wamesema wataki hata kurekebisha hii kitu. Wamesema take it. So you said it should be rectified, but the proponents are saying take it or leave it.
So we are leaving it.
So we are leaving it.
We are leaving it. All right, I think I'll also.
And nimesema, is there room for amending the BBI? The answer is no.
So we are leaving it then.
We are leaving it.
I am going to personally improve the provisions that work for me. Otherwise, if we don't do that and we leave it to people because they're selfish, I mean, it's still not going to work for us. So it's a lose-lose situation. It's a lose-lose situation if you sit on the other end of things.
So what you need to tell them is, let's have